there, thanks for joining me. I want to take you through a balancing sequence today. Balancing can be really great for calming and grounding, and it's also great for building resilience and strength, because our body has to respond and adapt to being out of balance. So let us begin by just inviting curiosity and exploration into the practices today and see what you notice. So we're going to begin by coming into standing in a mountain pose. So just stand with your feet about hip distance apart, sensing into the center of your heels, the base of your big toes and the base of your baby toes. So it's kind of like each foot is standing on a tripod. And so we're just kind of setting a baseline for feeling balanced and grounded. And so we have 2 feet supporting us on the ground. Just letting your arms kind of hang by your side. Notice your breath, letting it be soft and gentle. And maybe closing the eyes or having the eyes open. And just feel into the connection between your feet and the ground. You might notice that there's a gentle sway forward and back as the body calibrates. Maybe you feel really, solid and grounded. There's no right or wrong experience. We're just noticing what you feel. So know that at any time you can come back to feeling stable and grounded in a mountain pose. So we're going to start our balancing exploration by shifting the weight into one leg so that the other leg's a little bit free, so you can move it around. But what we don't want to have happen is for the free leg side to hip hike. So try to keep the hips as level as you can, and you can do this facing a mirror if it's helpful. And just explore sliding the leg forward and back. And you can also do this standing on a block or maybe on a thick book. So you have options. If you need to hold on to something, have a chair or a wall handy. So even in standing on the block, we want to keep the hips level. So I'm just going to turn sideways so you can see the movement of the leg. And I'm exploring. Oops, I need to be on the block a little bit better here. Keeping the hips level. And I'm moving the leg forward and back. And so the movement is happening here at the hip socket. The knees, I'm not doing any kind of bending through my knee. Just keeping the leg straight. And if I go back too far, then my pelvis tilts forward. If I go too far forward, then my pelvis tilts back, or the spine might round. So just keep that in mind, that the movement's just happening at the leg and not higher up, and not through the pelvis. And then you can also explore, let me turn my block the other way, keeping the hips level, taking the leg out to the side, and back in. And if it's challenging to keep the hips level, if the hip hike's happening or you're dropping down, maybe the exploration is just this, keeping the hips level. And then taking a break and keeping the hips level. And if that's easy for you, then we can take the leg movement into it. And as you can see, my body's not pitching to the side. I'm just letting the movement come through the leg. And then I'm going to bring my leg slightly forward and across the body. So I just want to explore all different ranges of motion, but quieting compensations as much as possible. And then we can try the same thing on the other side. And if you just want to pause in between in a mountain pose and just notice what feels different or what feels the same. And then either standing on the floor, on a book, or on a block. And just explore keeping the hips level. And then if movement is in your practice, explore taking the legs forward and back without the pelvis shifting. And side to side. And So I'm noticing I'm going to the side a little bit, so I'm just going to make my movement a little bit smaller and see if I can find a range where I'm not compensating. And you can also I noticed with my hands on my hips that I was tensing a little bit through my shoulders. So I'm just going to release my arms down and take the shoulders out of the equation a little bit more. And then when you feel tired, or if you notice the hip dropping down or starting to hike up, it's just a little note that maybe your body needs a little break, and come back to balanced. So that's one balancing practice that you can explore. Another one is tree pose. So I start by rotating my leg out and keeping the hips neutral. So the movement's leg bone in the hip socket, and bending the knee and sliding the ankle, or heel to ankle rather. And so maybe just keeping the foot on the floor is a great place to be. Maybe adding a little bit of support with your hand against the wall. If this feels easy, you can explore maybe coming onto your tiptoe or sliding the sole of the foot against the inside of the shin. And the hands can be down, palms can be together. A little bit more challenging to bring the arms up or all the way up. And then also where we set our gaze can make a difference in terms of our balance. So picking a spot on the floor to set your gaze can help with balance. Looking straight ahead or looking up will make it more challenging. And you can explore the leg position, but only come up as far as the hip doesn't hike up and that you're not pressing against your knee. And then we can explore the other side, finding the rotation of your leg bone in the hip socket. And I have videos on how to do this in more detail. Bending the knee and sliding heel to ankle. And then maybe up a little bit higher. And only as far as the hips stay level. And as you're in the balancing position, notice your breath. Can you breathe with ease? Notice if you're breath holding. I can really feel my ankles and lower legs kind of wobbling and calibrating as it keeps me upright. And then coming out carefully. So that's another balancing activity. If you're like, tree pose isn't for me, I don't know about moving my leg in all these different directions, we can do something a little bit more simple. You can either do it with a block or without a block, or a stack of books or whatever you want. So we start in a mountain pose with the feet hip distance apart, feeling into the 3 points of the feet, starting from a place of feeling grounded and supported. And then shift the weight into one leg, and then from the front of the hip, the thigh is going to lift, and then you can either come all the way back down or place your foot on the block in front. Starting from a place of ease, shoulders relaxed, breathing through the nose, and you're going to lift the thigh and place the foot back on the ground. If you're not using a block, then you're just going to lift and come back down. And now how much you lift is going to vary from person to person. So again, just like in tree pose, we don't want the hip to hike up. We only want to go as far as we can stay balanced without pitching to the side or lifting the leg. So it might be a small lift. Maybe the toes don't even come off the floor. Or maybe you have a bit more range and the foot comes higher. And then as the foot comes back to the ground, we find the balance through both feet, both legs, shifting the weight into the other side, and then lifting the thigh and placing the foot onto the block. Pause from a place of ease, then we can lift the leg and bring the foot back down. Finding your balance, shifting to the first side again. So one cue that I sometimes use with clients is imagine that there's a marionette string attached to your thigh, And you're lifting that string to bring the leg up and placing it down. And then you're lifting and placing. So balance can be really challenging. There's a lot of things to pay attention to. Lifting, placing. And the most important thing is just be really compassionate with yourself. Go slowly, it's not a race. We're just building up the pieces so we can get through life and do the things that we need to do with a bit more ease. And who doesn't want more ease, right? I know I certainly do. Good. So I haven't been specific about how many repetitions to do per side, and that's totally up to you, and it's going to depend on your capacity. So if you can do, 2 or 3 without a lot of compensations happening or getting tired, then you do 2 or 3. If you find that you start to kind of cheat your movement a little bit, then maybe you've done too many. But I mean, whether you do 5 or whether you do 10, it's going to be an individual basis. You don't need to do like 50 or 100. I would say that would be overdoing it. Okay, one more balancing practice. Actually, and then let's do 2. So from our mountain pose, finding the 3 points of the feet, the center of the heel, base of the big toe, base of the baby toe. And we're going to keep both feet grounded, well, the balls of the feet grounded, and we're going to lift up onto the heels and then coming back down. We'll do about 10 of these. We want to move with as much control and coordination as you can without kind of having to grip or brace yourself to do the movement. So if you need to hold on to something, hold on. If this feels really easy for you, as you come up and then down, but don't touch down on your heels all the way. So just kind of hover for a moment and then come back up. And we want to maintain the connection between the base of the big toe and base of the big toe. So if you're kind of wobbling in and out, just be really easy with yourself. Come down, ground, and then come back up. And then there's also the version of doing it with 1. So I'm just bringing the back of my foot to the back of my calf and lifting up, whoop, on 1. A little bit more challenging. You can try both sides. So if you're a runner or an aspiring runner like me, these are a nice balancing practice to do before, because you get a nice stretch through the back of your legs and kind of help to strengthen as well. All right. So the final practice, and this is probably the most challenging one, or the one that people find most challenging, I certainly do, is Warrior 3. So we'll start from the mountain pose, 3 points of the feet connected with the ground, and then shift the weight into one leg, and then just like we did when we were swinging the leg forward and back, we're going to take the opposite leg back just onto the ball of the feet. And then the movement is the pelvis moving on the leg bone. So the hip points are starting to come forward, and in the movement of the pelvis moving over the leg bone, the leg goes back and the torso comes forward. So I'm also going to show you from the side. So I'm taking my leg back, and then the head and the foot are essentially staying, oops, I don't have enough room, are essentially staying in one line. So the leg's not coming higher, my body's not rounding forward. I don't have a lot of room in front and behind to demonstrate this really well, but I think you kind of get the point, right? And we're also just checking to make sure that we're not, lifting up the hip or doing something kind of funky. Just keeping the hips level, neutral pelvis. And you can explore the same thing on the other side. Finding the balance in both feet. Leg comes back. And then the pelvis It's initiating the movement. So that was a lot. Pick one or two that you enjoy or that resonates most with you and have fun exploring. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to me and I'm happy to clarify more in another video for you. Have a great day.